Hey, I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC Fight Night 90, Dos Anjos versus Alvarez, which happens on July 7th on UFC Fight Pass. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. I am an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can buy my first novel, an action adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom for $4.99 on PDF at www.chrismaldon.com. Or if you have a Kindle, you can buy it off of Amazon also for $4.99. On my website, you can check out stuff like free short stories, blogs which are updated weekly, and check other stories for sale as well. Okay, onto this card. It looks like a fun card. There are definitely some action fighters on here. Duffy, Jouban, Lewis versus Nelson. Pyle he's in really good bouts. Baghdad versus Makdessi should be fun. Um, there are some really good prospects on here. Excuse me, like Pedro Munhoz, um, Gilbert Burns. Those are like some really high level prospects. You can say Joseph Duffy too. Derrick Lewis is still a heavyweight prospect. Um, I will say this though, as far just looking through this card and my personal opinion of this card um, is that I don't see too many matchups that are. I don't want to say they're one-sided, but they don't seem so closely contested. Like there's some, like I really don't like Burn Sajewski or something like that. It's like there's a I guess fights where I don't look at the odds, but it looks like there's a lot of fights here where like there's definitely one very clear favorite and not many that I can say is like, okay, that one was really hard to pick. I mean, yeah, upsets have been happening for sure. Don't get me wrong, they have been. Upsets have been happening, but like, it's looking through this card. It's like I wouldn't. I don't see too many opportunities for some of these guys personally to win upset wise, but we'll see. Like I said, I've been getting really surprised this whole year. Um, about like upset picks and whatnot. And you are talking about like new fighters. You're talking about prospects, so they're gonna have holes in their game. You're talking about lower level fighters and like mid to lower level fighters, and they have holes in their game. Aging fighters at time, they have holes in their game too. So I could be very wrong here, but it's just what I observe. Okay, so in the main event for the UFC lightweight title, we have Rafael dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez. Alvarez, 27-4 record, 14 wins by KO TKO, 7 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by submission. He's 32, 5-10 on a 2-fight win streak, training out of the Black Zillions. If anything, as far as skills go, if anything, I would say his resilience is actually one of his best skills. I mean, he's a guy that's very tough to put away, and he kind of keeps going after his opponent, even though he gets dropped in the first round or something. His boxing is solid. He's a strong wrestler too, both offensively and defensively. He's good in the clinch. His overall Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills are actually pretty good. He's good at taking it back. He hasn't shown it as of late, but he is actually quite good at that. His stand-up defense has something to be desired, though. Rafael dos Anjos, 25-7 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 8 wins by sub. 31 years old, he's 5'9" on a 5-fight win streak, training out of King's MMA, and he is the current UFC lightweight champion. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, with strong wrestling. His takedown defense is really good. His Muay Thai skills are really strong. He has particularly good kicks to the body and legs. And he's shown to be pretty heavy-handed as of late. Knocked out Benson Henderson of all guys. for example, knocked out Cerrone as well. Well, got the TKO win over Cerrone as well. So, um, with the way, like I said, the way upsets are going, I, you know, I can see Eddie Alvarez because he has all those X factors like heart, resilience, and whatnot, getting the win. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. He, I will say this, like his last fight against Pettis, I don't actually think he should have got the win there. And even against Melendez, he'll grind if he needs to. And if he wants a good majority of those fights, they're good fights, but like there are a lot of times when he's getting his opponent up against the fence. He's kind of just grinding away. If he needs to, he will do that. Um, for example, it's not like he has no other skills. He does, obviously. But I like Dos Anjos here. It's his overall variety of attacks. His good ground and pound. If he takes you down, he can ground and pound you down. He has some strong Muay Thai. Good kicks. His punches are getting better too. He's showing to be a bit more heavy-handed. Defensively, he just looks a lot better these days too. So I'm going to go Rafael dos Anjos to win this one. I think he just has a little more variety. He should be the bigger guy, too. I had to say, like, even Pettis, I thought Pettis looked bigger than Alvarez. And I could be wrong, but I can't help but feel that Eddie Alvarez is a bit undersized for the division. The way it sits now, where guys are just in the UFC cut major weight. You're talking like guys like James Vick, who's like 6'3", cuts down to 155. And guys are like 6'1", are actually starting to become a bit of the norm. There's huge guys. So yeah, the size difference. I can't help but Rafael dos Anjos might just be the bigger guy in the cage too. So I go Rafael dos Anjos. I don't know if I'll go by a finish here, so I'll just go Rafael dos Anjos by decision. Next fight is that Derrick the Black Beast Lewis fights Roy Big Country Nelson. Nelson, 21-12 record, 13 wins by KO or TKO, 5 wins by sub. Also has 2 losses by KO or TKO, 39 years old. He's 6 foot, an Ultimate Fighter winner. He's already won 2 of his last 7. He has a really strong overhand right. That guy throws it. He spams it at times. It is a one-punch knockout hit. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Like, he actually has a pretty decent trip takedown game. His top control is really good. He's got a really good chin. His cardio, though, isn't the greatest. Derrick Lewis, 15-4 record with 1 no contest, 14 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub. That's his 2 losses by KO or TKO. 30 years old. He's 6'3" on a 3-fight win streak, and he has a finisher. He has some good boxing. Super heavy hands, man. I have never, like, this guy's power is ridiculous. This guy can one-shot KO a lot of guys. His overall grappling game's improving. You actually see it in his last fight. He sprawled against a takedown, threw his opponent to the ground, and just unloaded this ground and pound. And his ground and pound is also fight ending as well. Oh, not last opponent. His last opponent was Gonzaga, actually. And he did get taken down there. This is actually one that, I did mention it in the preview that, there's a lot of hard fights. There weren't too many fights that are like really hard to call that I didn't feel were really well matched. But this is one of them that I definitely feel was like really well matched. So Lewis is kind of like something of the up and comer, even though he has like 20 fights. Like he's what, and it's 31 and 20 fights. But at heavyweight, that makes you an up and comer. And Nelson's kind of established. Defensively, both these guys aren't that great. Nelson, in particular, that guy gets beat up a lot. But one thing about Lewis, like, his defense isn't that great either. Like, would not surprise me at all if Nelson catches him with an overhand right. If you catch him with an overhand right, it would just not surprise me one bit. we'll say this too. Derrick Lewis's takedown defense is not very good. Um, it's quite weak. Gonzaga managed to take him down. A lot of opponents of his managed to taken him down. Victor Pasta managed to take Derrick Lewis down. So a lot of guys do manage to take Derrick Lewis down. Um, well, this one's tough, man, because Roy Nelson isn't Gonzaga. Like his chin doesn't necessarily fail him, unless he's fighting like he fought Arlovsky and Hunt, he not managed to knock him out. But yeah, Lewis is a different type of fighter. So it's hard for me to call. Ultimately, and I'll say this too. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna go Derrick Lewis by knockout. I'm actually gonna go by knockout too. Part of it is just because I want to see new blood in the top of heavyweight. Honest truth. Part of it's because of I want to see up and comers actually beating veteran heavyweights. Because sometimes you don't always see that. Guys like Todd Duffy lose to Frank Mir, for example. You know, on a technical level, excuse me. On a technical level, though, I mean, I think Lewis has made the necessary improvements that he can beat Roy Nelson. I'm not super confident that Lewis will be able to avoid one of Nelson's overhand rights. Um, I'm not super confident that Derrick Lewis can avoid getting taken down if Nelson clinches with him. Never know if Nelson will try to fight a bit smarter in this fight. Maybe go for a little more takedowns even. Wouldn't surprise me. It's he is a veteran after all. But ultimately, I'll go with Lewis to be able to hit him hard. Um, the thing with Nelson, his defense isn't very good, and Lewis has some stupid power. I mean, it's just like ridiculous one-shot power. Not super confident in the pick though, to be honest with you. But and part of my desire to pick Lewis is also just my desire to see new heavyweight blood in the top of the division. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Derrick Lewis by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Ellen Brahma Jouban fights. Remember the name Belal Muhammad. Muhammad 9-0 undefeated record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 6 wins by decision. He's 5'10", taking the fight on short notice. So I watched his fight against Steve Carl, and what I primarily saw was a boxing game. He's good at using range and distance. He boxed well. He used his combinations. It didn't seem like the hardest hitter. He seemed like more of an accumulation type guy. His record actually kind of reflects that as well. He did actually land some really good body punches on Steve Carl as well. But it seems like he was primarily a boxer who used a couple low kicks here and there. I didn't get to see much else of his game except a range boxing game. Alan Jouban, 13-4 record, 9 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub. His 2 losses by KO or TKO, 33 years old, he's 6 foot, training at a black house. He has some strong Muay Thai. Really good knees and elbows. He beat that one guy, Walsh, I remember, with knees and elbows against a cage. So overall grappling game is actually not too bad too. He can go to the ground. If he does get taken down, he can get back to his feet. The name of his game, though, really is he's super resilient and super game. His stand-up defense is weak, and he is a slow starter. Jovan, man, this guy gets dropped in the first round of every fight in the UFC he's been in. Really, it's not every, but in a good amount of his fights in the UFC so far. Dropped the first round, come back, and then he comes back. So With that said, though, I mean, I like Muhammad's game. I thought it was solid for what he did, but it seems a bit less. It didn't seem to have a lot of variety to it. And with Jouban, not the best puncher, but he definitely just seems to have a lot more tools so far. At long range, he has the kicks, and at short range, he has the knees and elbows. He's also just real resilient. Um, Jeez, hold on. Yeah, he's like real resilient, super game, and I think he just has more variety of attack than Belal, who seem to just have his range boxing game. So with that said, I'll go with Alan Jouban to win this one. I'll go by decision. Um, like I said, just Jouban has just shown a little more variety than Belal Muhammad. Next, right after that, Mitch Danger Zone Clarke fights Irish Joe Joseph Duffy. Mitch Mitch Clarke, 11-3 record, one win by TKO, 7 wins by sub. 30 years old, he's 5'10", training out of MMA Lab in a last spot in April of 2015. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. His stand-up is just average at best. Joseph Duffy, 14-2 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by sub. 28 years old, he's 5'10". He has some good boxing. However, he has this really sideways stance, which isn't good for his takedown defense. He actually has some pretty bad takedown defense because of it. But he does have some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He is good off his back. He'll throw a triangle almost like right away. Um, Another problem of his, though, he does become a bit too content off of his back. So, with that said, though, I mean, Mitch Clarke is a guy that is just hanging around in the UFC right now. Like, he's can hardly even call him a prospect. He doesn't have like a very. I mean, like he got that upset win over Ally Quinto where he got he was in side mount and then he gets like a Darce. He was on the bottom, so he obviously has some tricky points of his game. But otherwise, stand up isn't that great. It's just average. His grabbing is strong, but so is Duffy. But I think Duffy also has a stand-up game to work with his grappling game as well. I don't like Duffy's overall takedown defense though, and that is somewhere that Mitch Clarke could possibly attack him at. But otherwise, I'll go with Irish Joe Duffy to win this one. Um, hmm. You know what, man? I'll go KO or TKO. You know what? I'll go KO or TKO. So yeah, Joseph Duffy, KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Alberto, Soldier of God, Mina fights Mike Quicksand Pyle. Pyle, 27-11 record with 1 draw, 7 wins by KO TKO, 16 wins by sub. He also has 5 losses by KO TKO and 4 losses by sub. He's 40 years old. He's 6'1", training out of Syndicate. He's only won 2 of his last 5 fights. Most recently, he actually beat pretty good, a pretty decent fighter whose name absolutely escapes me at this point. um, but Pyle is a true veteran. He is a guy that does make adjustments mid-fight. Good stand-up. His overall stand-up skills are actually pretty good. Um, he can throw from far range. He's actually shown to be relatively heavy-handed as of late too. But he does also have good knees as well. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He's really crafty on the ground. His overall wrestling's good too, especially his clinch takedown game. His chin though is not very good. He tends to get dropped in just about every fight he's in at this point. Alberto Mina, 12-0 undefeated record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub, 34 years old, 6 foot, training out of Kings. He is a BJJ black belt. His stand up is average, I'd say. If anything, it's more brawling than anything else. And his cardio has shown not to be that great. He tends to put a lot into his punches. Um, I gotta go with Mike Pyle here, actually. Alberto Mina hasn't particularly impressed me, like, who did he beat? Like, he beat Akiyama in his last fight, kind of gassed near the end. Um, you know, his stand up is kind of winging punches. His ground skills are there, but it doesn't really use them too much. Pyle has a craftiness, veteran savvy. I do fear the first round. Like, dude, I can see Pyle just getting hit hard. That's and get dropped and be in a bad predicament. It's not until like later rounds that Pyle, like round 2 and 3, where Pyle can really pick it up. That's usually what's been going on with him as of late. So with that said, I'll go with Mike Pyle to win this one by decision. Okay, on the prelims, I mean everything's on the UFC Fight Pass. So Alberto, Soldier of God, Mina fights Mike Quicksand Pyle. Oh, Mehdi, the Sultan Baghdad fights John the Bull Makdessi. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. I selected the wrong thing for some reason. Okay, Makdessi, 13-5 record, 9 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by decision. 31 years old. He's 5'8", and 2-fight losing streak. Training out of TriStar. Strong kickboxer. He's actually pretty heavy-handed. His takedown defense is good, and he's got a really good chin too. Mehdi Baghdad, 11-4 record, 8 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. Has his 2 losses by KO or TKO. He's 31 years old. He's 6'1", training out of Black House, and he is a finisher. His stand-up is actually pretty solid. He's quite heavy-handed too. However, his ground skills aren't the greatest. Chris Wade take down, take the back, and it was over quite quickly. This one's actually hard for me to call just because, like, both these guys prefer to keep the fight standing. Baghdad's taller. Makdessi, I can't help but feel that Makdessi has a deeper bag of tricks in the stand-up. He has a particularly good jab. Here's one thing with Makdessi, though. There's something about his fighting style that judges don't like, and that actually gives me pause for concern. Because there were like 2 bouts, I think it was against Alan Patrick, that he probably should have won that one and he lost. And he also fought that tall guy too, the Hawaiian guy whose name escapes me at the moment. Name escapes me at the moment now. But, the fights he should have probably won did the more damage. But it seemed like his opponent, for whatever reason, appears to be the more active fighter than him, I suppose. Nonetheless, I like Makdessi's game here. He's a good jab, good kicks. He's probably fought the higher level of competition as well. He's got a really good chin too. I think it's tough, but I'll go John Makdessi to win this by decision. Next fight after Anthony El Toro Birchak fights Dileno Lopes. Lopes, 18-2 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 12 wins by sub, 28 years old. I actually rewatched his fight against Reginaldo Vieira, who's fighting on this card actually. So, obviously he has a really strong guillotine and some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. His wrestling, it didn't look too bad. Stand-up looked kind of average. He was getting beat up quite a bit. But he managed to keep some level of composure, so I did like that. I thought he had a really close fight with Reginaldo, to be honest with you. I would have argued that he should have gotten a nod there. But he's fighting Anthony Birchak, who has a 12-3 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. and 2 losses by submission. 30 years old. And he also got knocked out by Tomas Almeida. 30 years old, 5'8", and the name of his game is aggression. His stand-up's good, but man, he leaves a lot of openings, and um, someone like Tomas Almeida managed to capitalize on it. Birchak's wrestling is actually pretty good as well. His overall defense, though, isn't the greatest. This one's kind of hard for me to call because, one, I I can't recall, but I don't think Birchak in the UFC has actually been past the first round. Um, he lost that leg lock specialist in the first round. Then he comes back, knocks out Joe Soto in the first round. Then he gets knocked out by Tomas Almeida. Um, so it's really tough to say how good he's going to do against this level of competition. Dileno Lopes, too. He's only had one fight in the UFC so far. Um, so this one's tough for me. This was actually one of the tougher ones to pick for me. So I do like Lopez's overall game better. I think he's just more of just a little more technically sound. Um, doesn't leave as many openings as Birchak did. And if Birchak leaves his neck out there, he's probably going to get guillotined. So with that said, I think Birchak is going to leave those openings. Standing, he might get hit. Could go for a desperation takedown, for example. Something. So, I'm going to go Dileno Lopes and win this one by submission. Next fight after that, Gilbert Derrick Burns fights Lukasz Wookie Sajewski. Sajewski, 13-1 record, 2 wins by KO, 7 wins by sub, 25 years old, he's 5'8". Last fought in June of 2015. Honestly, everything about him is pretty average. His boxing, quite average. His overall grappling game, average at best. You know. Gilbert Burns, 10-1 record, 3 wins by KO, 6 wins by sub, 29 years old, he's 5'10". Trains out the Black Zillions. He's a top Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I mean, the way he beat Alex Oliveira, I mean, it was like omoplata to top control to like armbar or something. I mean, it was so clean. It was so clean. His overall wrestling's pretty good too. Um, his stand-up is improving. His cardio still needs some work though. I think one thing with Dorino is that, like, I know I said his wrestling's good, but it's more power than technique because he's a strong guy. Like I said, his stand-up is steadily improving. It's still the weakest aspect of his game. I think it might be just as good, if not better, than Sajewski's, though. With that said, though, I mean, Gilbert Burns really needs to use it. He always has his jiu-jitsu to fall back on. Might even be the stronger guy here. So I'll go with Gilbert Burns to win this by submission. Next fight after that, Marco Psycho Beltran fights Reginaldo Vieira. Vieira, 13-3 record, 9 wins by sub, 3 wins by decision. He also has 2 losses by submission. He's 5'6" on a 3-fight win streak. In the last fight in August of 2015, he's the Ultimate Fighter winner. So yeah, I did watch his last fight. His guillotine's really strong. His cardio is actually pretty good too. He kind of wings punches in his stand-up. Like he'll start with his not his lead hand, but the hand behind him, and kind of throw with that. Doesn't lead with his lead hand pretty much all the time. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills as well. Beltran, 7-3 record, 2 wins by KO, 3 wins by sub. Has his 2 losses by sub. He's 5'8" on a 2-fight win streak. Last time he fought Chinese guy, right? I mean, he looked just terribly average, Stand up is kind of average. The overall grappling game is just kind of average. There's no real standout skill from Marco Beltran that I particularly see. So with that said, I think Vieira's better on the ground. I think he can do just as well on the stand up too. So I'll go Reginaldo Vieira to win this by submission. Next fight after that, Alvaro Alchango Herrera fights Vicente the Silent Assassin Luque. Luque, 8-5 record with 1 draw, 3 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub. He has his 2 losses by submission. 24 years old, he's 5'11", training out of Black Zillions. He's trading wins and losses right now. Most recently he beat what's his name from the Ultimate Fighter? Jeez, I totally forgot the guy's name. Hyder Hassan. Yeah, he beat Hyder Hassan with a front choke. He has a really good front choke series. Strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, really good front chokes, and his stand-up actually isn't too bad too. Okay, Herrera, 9-3 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. That's his 2 losses by KO TKO. 26 years old, he's 6 foot, 2-fight win streak. His stand-up's good, man. He knocked out his last opponent. He showed some pretty heavy hands. His grappling, it's just kind of average at best. I think Luque is definitely better on the ground than him. And Herrera's defense isn't anything to write home about. With that said, yeah, I gotta go with Vicente Luque to win this one. Heck, man, I think he might be able to catch him with a sub, to be honest with you. So I'll go Vicente Luque to win this by submission. I think he's gonna be the better fighter on the ground. Standings should be a bit interesting. Because Luque, he's a guy that will take some punches, but he doesn't have bad stand-up or anything like that. But Herrera does hit quite hard. So I think it gives me some cause for concern for Luque there. But otherwise, I can see Luque taking the fight to the ground, maybe getting one of his front chokes and getting into sub. So, Vicente Luque by submission. Next fight out, Russell Doane fights Pedro, the young Punisher Munhoz. Russell Doane, 14-5 record, 6 wins by KO TKO, 5 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by submission. 29 years old, he's 5'6", on a 2-fight losing streak, trains out of Hawaii Elite. And he last fought in July of 2015. He's a good wrestler, actually. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills are quite solid. He's good at taking the back. Man, he made some big errors in his last fight that I was really disappointed. I want to say he fought Jared. Was it Jared Sanders? It may have been Jared Sanders in the last fight. He'd take the back, and then he'd get reversed, and just kind of do the same thing over and over again. Stand-ups also is kind of average too. Pedro Munhoz, 11-2 record with 1 no contest, 2 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. 29 years old. He's 5'6", trains out of Kings. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills himself. He can go for a leg lock and stuff, but yeah, he has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. I want to say he won one fight by what was it, guillotine or rear naked? His overall wrestling skills are pretty good too, both offensively and defensively. And stand-up is improving. He actually did quite well against a top fighter in, was it Jimmy Herrera? I picked Jimmy Herrera to win, but it was a close fight, and Munhoz actually managed to get a couple of good shots on him. With that said, Russell Doane, I can't help but feel that his strength is mainly on the ground. I can't help but feel that Munhoz might actually just be better there. And on the feet, it's one of those things where it could be equal. If not, I'd probably get the edge to Munhoz. So yeah, I'm gonna go Pedro Munhoz to win this one. Man, I'm saying sub a lot, huh? You know what? Let's continue on with that by submission. And finally, Felipe Sertanejo Arantes fights Jared J. Reezy Sanders. Okay, J. Reezy Sanders, 15-2 record with 1 no contest. 2 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub, 35 years old. He's 5'8", trains out of ATT OKC. Last fought in July of 2015. And he doesn't really stand with his opponents very much. His wrestling's good though, and his stand-up is just kind of average at best. Arantes, 17-7 record with one draw, and two no contests. 7 wins by KO TKO, 5 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by submission. 28 years old. He's 5'8", training at a shoot box and Macaco Gold Team. He's trading wins and losses right now. Last fought in August of 2015. His Muay Thai skills are actually pretty good. He has some good, solid Muay Thai skills. Um, Excuse me. Good leg kick game. Actually, his ground and pound is actually pretty good too. He's actually beaten. What was it? Castro with ground and pound. And his over Brazilian Jiu skills are quite sneaky. He got that armbar win against dude from TriStar who's been fighting forever. Went to the ground with Andre Fili. So, and managed to scramble really well on the ground with him. So, yeah, I've always liked Arantes' game. I always thought that he's a solid but not spectacular fighter. I think he's good enough to beat Sanders here as well. So, yeah, I think he can beat him up in the stand-up. Probably is a better grappler, too. Maybe not the better wrestler, but the better grappler. I'll go Felipe Ranch. I'll go with the finish here. You know what? I'll go KO or TKO. Okay, to recap. With Rafael dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez. Dos Anjos by decision. Derrick Lewis versus Roy Nelson. I got Derrick Lewis by KO or TKO. Ellen Jouban over Belal Muhammad by decision, is it? Yeah. Joseph Duffy beating Mitch Clarke by, I think it was by KO or TKO actually. Mike Pyle beating Alberto Mina. Jeez, I want to say it's by decision. Okay, on the prelims, I have John Makdessi over Mehdi Baghdad by decision. Dileno Lopes beating Anthony Birchak by submission. Gilbert Burns over Lukasz Sajewski by submission. Reginaldo Vieira over Marco Beltran by submission. Vicente Luque over Alvaro Herrera. I think that was by submission as well. Pedro Munhoz beating Russell Doane. I want to actually say that was by submission too, right? Or decision. I kind of called a finish, like, on the spot. And Felipe Arantes over Jared Sanders by KO or TKO. So that's it for my predictions for UFC Fight Night 90, Dos Anjos versus Alvarez. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please support me and my journey of being an author by buying my first novel, The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on PDF at www.chrismodong.com. Or if you have a Kindle, you can buy it at Amazon.com for $4.99. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.